Hello and welcome everybody to April 24th, regular town council meeting. We'll start the meeting, I call this meeting to order at 7:04. And I'll start by looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councilor Curtis makes the motion. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next, adoption of the minutes. I'll need a motion for our last regular meeting. Councilor Bullock makes the motion. Is there any errors or omissions within these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Do we need a motion for the special meeting too? Okay, we're looking for adopt the minutes of our special meeting. Councilor Lemko makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. First up, we have a delegation. So we have our auditors, Wild & Company, Chartered Professional Accountants, and Mr. Kyle Bondarchuk is here to make a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, the audit team supervisor, Renee Thiessen, isn't able to join us tonight. She's sick, so I'm it tonight. I'd like to start by thanking Megan, Chris, and all the staff. It truly is a pleasure working with the team you guys have, so I really appreciate that. Megan already presented the financial statements and the variance analysis at the Ledge meeting, so we won't go into all the details there. Instead, we're going to touch on the audit report and then the risk assessment memo that was provided. So that document outlines significant risk areas and procedures that we perform to mitigate each risk. So basically, what work is performed in the audit for the protection of council and the ratepayers. So start with the audit report. So the audit report that's attached to the financial statements, near the bottom of the first page, it outlines responsibilities of management. So management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of the consolidated financial statements in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And then our responsibility as auditors is at the top of the second page. Our objectives as auditors are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. So then the top of the report is the opinion section. And so based on the work performed, clean audit opinion, so green light in all areas basically. So good there. So then we'll jump over to the audit summary memo. We'll start with second last page. The materiality is, although it's on the second last page, that's kind of the starting point for the audit. So we use a risk-based audit approach with materiality being the starting point, like I said. So materiality is calculated at 3% of revenue net of requisitions. And so that amount is calculated at $535,000 for 2022 is the materiality limit for the 2022 year end. So from that amount, we use professional judgment and other risk factors to develop performance materiality, which is a lower level of materiality for high risk accounts. So then moving over to the actual risk assessment, starting at the beginning now back to page 1. So basically the risk assessment here, it outlines the financial statement areas and transaction streams that are identified as significant areas of the financial statements. And then risk mitigating procedures that we perform are also provided here. So the first section, property tax, the procedures that we perform, third-party confirmation is received to verify the assessment values. From there, tax mill rates from the bylaw are used to recalculate expected property tax revenue. That expected amount is compared to actual, and any significant differences are investigated. Property taxes receivable aging is reviewed and compared on a year-over-year basis. Any variances in aging composition are investigated. So overall conclusion on property taxes are fairly stated with no material misstatements identified. Next up is payroll. So the procedures performed there. So payroll testing is performed on a random sample of employees. Testing includes agreeing the wage rate to a contract or grid level that the employee is at, and to ensure that the pay rate is accurate. Net wage is then recalculated based on timesheets, and any discrepancies are investigated. Wages are reconciled to T4 filings for every year, and as well, a detailed analytic is prepared also. Payroll, so in that, payroll for a randomly selected period is utilized to establish an average payroll per employee for that period. This average per employee is utilized to establish an expected payroll for each of the remaining periods, which is then compared to actual payroll expense for that period. Again, variances between expected and actual payroll are investigated. And on payroll, there was no material misstatements identified as well there, so payroll is fairly stated. Next section is tangible capital assets, or TCA. So all transactions recorded in the general ledger are reviewed. All transactions over a specific materiality, any irregular transactions or unusual journal entries are all investigated. Asset additions and disposals are tracked to a continuity schedule, with all significant additions and disposals vouched to supporting invoices. TCA continuity schedule is also audited for mathematical accuracy. Depreciation expense is recalculated for each asset class to ensure depreciation is being calculated in accordance with the town's policy. So again, conclusion on TCA. TCA is fairly stated with no material misstatements identified. Any questions so far? Everyone's still awake? So accounts receivable, procedures performed there. Accounts receivable aging is compared year over year. Any material variances are investigated. Material accounts receivable are vouched to invoices, and grants receivable are confirmed with the grant provider. Year over year analysis is also performed, with any material balances identified and discussed with management. Testing of cash receipts received after year end is completed, with any material cash receipts received after year end agreed to supporting invoices to ensure appropriate reporting. Conclusion there, accounts receivable fairly stated with no material misstatements identified. Accounts payable. So accounts payable, any material accounts payable are vouched to invoices as well. The accounts payable aging analysis is completed, again with any significant variances investigated. Year over year variance analysis is also performed, with any material variances identified being investigated. Invoices paid after year end are tested to ensure the transaction was recorded in the correct period, and unpaid invoices at the time of field work were also tested to ensure accurate reporting. Again, conclusion, accounts payable fairly stated with no material misstatements identified. Moving on to deferred revenue and grant revenue. Procedures performed on this area were grant funding recognized as revenue in the year as compared to eligible expenses incurred in the year. Grant funding agreements are reviewed to ensure compliance. Deferred revenue continuities are reviewed, and application of funding to specific expenditures or projects are all agreed to invoices. All material grant funding is agreed to third-party confirmation received from each grant provider. And the grant funding receivable at year end is confirmed with the third-party grant provider to ensure grants receivable are recorded in the correct fiscal period. In conclusion there, deferred revenue is fairly stated with no material misstatements identified. Any questions on any of that?
So Kyle, when we were looking at the financials, we've had a lot of grant funding, money that was supporting projects in 2022.
Yeah.
And it made our cash position look a little better than what it was, but everything is what you guys could see. I mean, the general public doesn't really understand at times, thinking that we're hoarding cash or something, but yeah. Everything you guys went through, and you say that you check with the parties that are providing the funding too, you go through that part?
That's right. And so with those grant funds are then tied to expenditures, and if the expenditures aren't expended in the 2022 year and the money is received, it's recorded as deferred revenue, so it sits on your balance sheet basically as a liability. And then in 2023, when those funds are expended, then the corresponding revenue will come out of deferred revenue, and that revenue will get reported in the same period as the expense. So yeah, it's quite
You
common.
guys go as far to check with the provider of the grants, that this money is coming and stuff too?
Yeah, yeah, all third-party confirmation and all that stuff, yeah.
Pretty thorough.
It's an audit.
I get it, I've been audited before.
So if no one's got any questions on any additional questions, that's about it. So yeah, thanks again to,
Well, I do have one other question.
okay, sure.
So when we're done this park, how does that go against our asset base? Like when this park is done, there's an assessment provided what the value of this park is, and then that is now, because it doesn't show up in the financials right now. It does?
We have 5 million in construction in progress currently.
Okay,
under
so,
TCA.
so when this project is done and the overall cost, so the value to the municipality is only the cost to build the park? Is that how we classify the value?
That's correct. Yeah, it'll be the lower cost to market, which cost. And if it were to be, at some point, if the cost were to be more than market, if you weren't able to market the land, then potentially you could write it down, but unlikely, I would hope.
No, I think we're gonna be priced pretty good
Yeah.
with the grant money we received. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Awesome.
You can thank the staff again.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Go Oilers.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of, council and staff, we do appreciate, what Wild & Company does for us here and what you guys do for this community every day. So you take that back to the rest of your partners, and
Will do.
and getting a pass every time is nice. I mean, but I know that we have former auditors on our staff now, and we know what we're doing now.
Absolutely. It makes our job that much easier when we're dealing with great people, so.
Well, we appreciate it, and now we can file this with the municipal government and, municipal affairs is what our next step is.
Yeah, so we'll need the approval resolution, the council approval of the financial statements, and then we'll get everything finalized and get it back over to you to file that MFIR.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
It wasn't boring at all, so. I mean, when it used to be the long version? Yeah. I've seen people in this seat fall asleep. Yeah. Yeah, and it's, not everybody, or not all have that skill set to read a financial statement and stuff, and Megan, Director Saskew, has been very helpful with questions and about what it means in real terms, like. So yeah, so we're really happy about that, so. And again, it's nice to get a pass. Thank you very much. And I guess you'll send us a bill? Okay. Okay, so moving on. Thank you very much. Everything's good? That's all we need? Do we need a motion right now? Okay, thanks, Kyle. Okay.
Thanks, Val.
Okay, next up, correspondence. We have a letter from Minister Rebecca Schultz, Alberta Municipal Affairs. Who's doing this? Are we reading the whole letter, or what are we doing?
I can save you the trouble, Your Worship, just by paraphrasing here a little bit. So, yeah, we received correspondence from Minister Schultz here allowing the JUPA agreements, the Joint Use and Planning Agreement, to be, or the deadline to have those in place extended to June 10th of 2025. Just to report back to council, we're well underway on ours. We've been actively working on the negotiation there since middle of last year. So there's 2 items left to sort of sort out with Elk Island Public School, and we should be on our way. So we expect to be done well ahead of this deadline, barring any unforeseen issues.
So just to bring council up to date, there was some stuff included in this joint agreement that we had never seen before, and senior staff is working with them trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I'm happy to comment on that today if you'd like as well, Your Worship. There was when we initially got the draft, I'd sent back 3 pages of concerns back to Elk Island Public School System. Most of those were minor, with the exception of sections 10 and sections 13 of the agreement. Section 10 spoke to development costs for the municipality, and what the original agreement said was that the municipality was responsible for all the development costs up front, including the land itself, but also attempting to bind us to developments that weren't traditionally ours with respect to developments. So telecommunications, for example, gas, hydro, those types of things. My response back to EIPS was that we'll consider items that are within our domain to approve, but we're certainly not going to pay to put natural gas or hydro in there. We'd consider water and sewer and maybe the road itself. That hasn't been totally knocked down yet. The major one of concern was clause number 13, which involved the demolition of a former school building. So that agreement basically stated that in the event that the school board walked away from a particular facility, they would return the land and the building to the municipality in an as-is condition. And I was very uncomfortable with that because it clearly left the door open for us to potentially absorb the financial liability of tearing down a derelict school building, or at least an aged-out school building. So we're still going back and forth with that one as well.
Can you tell us, during your inquiry, is this wasn't common practice in the agreement before, and did all other municipalities receive this same?
Good question. I've found it, or I've found out since all of this has come to pass that no, not everybody's receiving the same draft agreement, or at least with similar wording. So that's a little bit of a concern. And as far as what had happened in the past, no, I'm not sure. But the language that was proposed was definitely not something that I'd be comfortable bringing forward to council to recommend we sign it, the way it was originally drafted.
So it's kind of a tricky situation where not all municipalities are signing the same joint use agreement, where we are now responsible for the cost of a demolition of a school and providing services that aren't within the town's infrastructure norm. So CAO Leggett has been having very good conversations with them to try to figure out why would we sign a joint agreement that is not expected from other municipalities the same as we are.
I very much appreciate that you saw those items and want to address it, and I would hope, if I'm trying to be the optimistic side of it, that may potentially mean consideration as us in a community that needs development in the future. So optimistically, I will hold there. And maybe that is the wording, but I appreciate that you're on that.
Yeah, thanks. And just to let you know where I'm trying to go with it, members of council, that section 13, what I'm trying to have worded in there is that we retain the option to take back the lands and buildings, but that the base case for that return is that the school board return the property to us, and what I'm trying to put in there is in substantially the same condition as we turned it over to EIPS initially, so minus the building. Which then gives us the option that if we identify something for a 50, 60-year-old school building that might suit our municipal purposes, we can opt to keep it and take it over as is, but that the base case is we gave you a bare piece of land with no major liabilities tied to it, return us back the same thing, folks, and we're in business. So, yeah.
So having the option is the key.
Yep.
That if we were to option to take the facility over, then we would take on the liability eventually at some point that we would take that on for the demolition, but not just, which is kind of funny that not all municipalities receive the same wording in there. So go ahead, Councilor Rudy.
So, sorry, just to go back and clarify, as it stands right now, the school is the property of Alberta Infrastructure. So it's the province is the owner. And in speaking with Elk Island Catholic and Elk Island Public School Boards fairly recently, my understanding is in some of the other jurisdictions, in Strathcona County and Fort Saskatchewan, for example, if a school is miled out, there are situations where they're actually looking to utilize schools that are no longer serving the purpose in the neighborhoods that they are located. Have you had conversations with other communities then?
Just our neighbors across the street there so far, and I'm waiting to hear from Manville.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I haven't reached out to the other, any other neighboring communities, other than to say that, yeah, it's out there. But it's definitely language I'm not comfortable with just yet, so.
Fair enough. And I'm going to assume that it's probably an oversight. And hopefully that's the case, just because I know that in other jurisdictions, it's been a gift that they're looking to receive so that they don't have to build the facilities. For example, in Strathcona County, they had talked about using one of their older school buildings as a community center. But of course, sometimes when you receive a gift, it's not always what you were hoping for. So,
And that's my fear, Councillor Rudick. Having traveled extensively across the province, there's lots of derelict school buildings that are, here, there, and everywhere, not only across the province, but across the country as well. And without us having the option to say we'll keep it as is, I mean, yeah, imagine a situation where we inherit something that's 50, 60 years old. And part of my conversation with the negotiating committee with Elk Island was that, if the school board identifies that the building is aged out to the point where they're willing to walk away from it, well, if the municipality gets that building, what do we need then to retrofit it to upgrade to be a community center or something along those lines? And appreciating the fact that the province and the school board likely has deeper pockets than us, if they can't make it work, to simply say to us, here it is, guys, do whatever you want with it, I think is an unfair ask at this point. It places all the financial liability on us at the tail end of it.
Especially some older buildings and the construction materials. A lot of them come with a very large cost today to bring into the cleanup of certain type of materials in block buildings and stuff. So, I mean, having an option to accept a building as is fine. But if we're looking at something that the cost to tear it down doesn't out trump to have it as an asset. So, I mean, it was just kind of weird to see it written that way. So, go ahead.
I agree, Your Worship, but I do still like that option one, because I've also seen on the other side where, especially things that are like divisions, like school boards and whatnot, get these magic numbers in their head, and it's like it's miled out at this time. And there are buildings around the province that are 100 years old and actually are very viable, and we automatically write them off. I've seen different jurisdictions where all of a sudden they're going, oh my gosh, our school is 30 years old and therefore we need a new one. And I'm like, how are these other communities managing to keep 100-year-old buildings? So I really appreciate that you said option, because that, and again, we never want to sink ourselves into a bigger liability, but option is nice.
Okay, so you'll keep us updated on that as we move forward. So I will take a motion to receive and file this letter from the Minister Schultz. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, we have correspondence that we talked about in our ledge meeting from the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Association. So what they're asking is if we're interested in coming back and being a member again, and it's on a per capita basis. So for us to join with our population would be $1,198.68. So we've all read the letter, and in the past, we haven't. At one time, we were a member for quite a few years, and then in the past, we haven't seen the benefit of it. If you look at the Yellowhead today, I mean, it's an aging piece of infrastructure. And I don't know, they say they've reached out to Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, Devin Dreeshen, regarding some concerns and stuff that that they're seeing on the highway. But it is a very long stretch of highway, and I don't know how much we would have a voice in advocating for our stretch of the highway on this. But I'll open it up to council to see what your thoughts are about getting back into this association. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? Okay, Councillor Rudy.
So I'll just bring this forward because, of course, Mayor Starzyk refers to the fact that he and I spoke when we met in Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities Conference, and his concern was that Vegreville was one of the founding members and used to be the chair. Our former mayor, Coleman, was one of the big advocates at that time, and understood that there was a bit of a change when they had some of their larger members leave the Trans-Canada Highway Association, but felt that they've sort of reinvigorated their advocacy and their focus, and would hope to have our participation. So I'm not saying one way or the other what my feelings are, but he was hopeful that Vegreville would be a member again because he felt that our participation adds validity to the group and also would add relevance to our participation as one of the communities that's bisected by Highway 16.
Any other thoughts? So I don't see anybody in a hurry to make a motion. So maybe we'll just receive and file on this. Put it off to another year. I mean, I can tell you that when I first got on council many years ago, that I attended a couple of meetings, and the voices of the larger municipalities seemed to have a lot more sway in the room, and I hope there was a change in their approach, because it seemed like it was a nice weekend away at a nice resort and stuff. But that being said, a very good friend of mine is a life member of this Paul Smith, and Paul has informed me over the last couple of years that their mandate has changed a bit, and they're doing more on the tourism and advocating for construction on the highway. But seeing how we don't have anybody, go ahead, Councillor Lemko.
Thanks, Your Worship. At one time, I was the representative on this board for the town of Vegreville when we were still active in that, and a lot of the discussion centered around the highways in BC, which were the majority of the energy was placed, and we didn't see at that time we didn't see a benefit for us being on the board. And I'm seeing this letter coming out asking for funding, yet I have yet to see any documentation about advocacy that they're doing, or anything other than a request for funding. No follow-up, nothing that substantiates us being involved. And I know they're probably doing some work, but it'd be nice to know what that work is and what their concerns are. They're meeting with Minister Dreeshen to talk about these concerns, but without sharing that with us, it makes it kind of like why are we a member? So I don't know. It's probably good with what's moving forward, but I'd like to see what that looks like before I would be apt to go back.
Well, there's no doubt about it. The couple of meetings that I did attend when I was on this board, the city of Edmonton had a very large voice in what their concerns were. But overall, there was a lot of requests for tourism documents throughout BC, and there was some advocation for some road work in Saskatchewan. But other than that, without seeing what their plan looks like, the next 5-year plan, and what they'd like to get accomplished, I mean, I know that Councillor Rudick tried to set up something, or did Paul Smith, when he was the president, did he come here for a presentation once?
Yeah, we've had presentations over the years from Paul Smith as the chair and previous chair prior to Paul, I believe. So there have been presentations in the past, and I think probably the fact that Paul was so close by, it was easy for him to do the presentation, but I'm not sure. Marv is quite a ways away, so he probably wouldn't do it in person, but I think probably, to your point, it would be great to have the CAO provide some information about what kind of advocacy they're doing, and then that would be a more efficient way to be able to see what they're doing, how it applies for us, and put that onto decision-making for this year's budget. It's not a lot of money, but of course we want to make sure that you're spending money in a place that's going to be beneficial for the community, so I'm sure they wouldn't mind providing that. If they're already doing that advocacy to Minister Dreeshen, I'm sure they've got some documents ready already.
So, go ahead. Curtis.
Thanks. I think we have a very good advocate already in the Go East of Edmonton. Puts a lot of effort into our town and really promotes us out there. We also have a lot going on in town right now. We want to focus on some stuff here, and I just worry that we stretch ourselves too thin if we get into too much stuff.
Okay, so maybe we could get a motion to receive and file, and maybe we'll get staff, senior staff, to correspond back with Marv about, maybe he could send us an action plan with the next request, what their plan is, what they're working on, and, you know, then we'd look at it again. Councillor Berry. With the request of staff to get back to Marv. And
Receive and file and at the request.
is everybody good with that? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Next up is the monthly cash statement. Director Saskia.
Thank you, Worship. So this is the monthly cash statement for the month ending March 31st, 2023. We began the month with $8.36 million and closed the month with $9.49 million. So net increase of $1.1 million. Some of the major sources of cash in the month were an ISIP payment for $92,000, Government of Alberta grant for some projects this summer, Cemetery Bank, $181,000, and proceeds on a sale of an asset of $2.7 million. Major uses of cash included a first quarter education requisition of $505,000. That's for education. The purchase of capital items, a shredder, a track loader, and land for total value of $476,000. Debenture payments of $246,000. And that is everything.
Just give us the shredder and the track loader. What are we talking?
Yeah, for sure. So the shredder was purchased on budget for $57,000, and the track loader also on budget. I think they both were just under budget.
Skid steer? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
it says track loader for $127,000. So that's the track skid steer.
And those were all within the budget that we put down. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions regarding the cash statement? Take a motion. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to business. Director Saskew.
Just carry on for a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
So this is a request for council decision to approve the transfers to the carry forward operating reserve for use in 2023. The background on this is operating and capital funds have been set aside in the following reserves as part of the 2022 year-end process. These transfers to reserves are included in the financials that were presented at the Ledge meeting and by Kyle Benarchuk for Wild & Company tonight. They were not budgeted and therefore require council approval. So the financial implications is that an expenditure of $799,150 will be recorded in the 2022 financial records to transfer unexpended funds to the departments listed below to the carry forward operating reserve for use in 2023. Also note that these funds have been budgeted as revenue coming in out of the reserve in our 2023 budget. So we've transferred funds out of 2022 and then back in for 2023. So this is funds that we haven't levied taxpayers for in 2023 as we're transferring them from the carry forward reserve. Communication strategy is senior management will be made aware of the reserve balances and carry forward transfers, and the recommendation is that town council approve the transfer of $70.99,150 to the carry forward operating reserve for the departments listed in 22 for use in budget 2023.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take a motion for the recommendation. Councilor Roa makes the motion. Any comments? Just so everybody understands, these were in the 2022 budget, weren't finished or weren't purchased yet, but will be, so.
Yes, and to make another comment, approximately it's $250,000 or $260,000 of that is the ATCO Light Reserve. So that's the funds that we received for the infrastructure investment in the prior year. Those are gonna go to cover any surplus over budget for the following years. So that's where a large portion of that comes from.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Next up. Take the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the request for council's decision to approve the audited financial statements for December 31st, 2022. Wild and Company Chartered Professional Accountants presented their report of the audit to the town of Vegreville for the year ended December 31st, 2022, which included their audit report. The audit report, together with the financial statements, represent the audited financial statements which are required to be approved by council. The communication strategy is that the audited financial statements will be made available by request at the town office and will be posted on the town's website and other social media distribution channels. Recommendation is that the town council accept Wild and Company Chartered Professional Accountants report and approve the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Take a motion for the recommendation. Councilor Lemko makes the motion. Any questions? Well, good work.
Thank you.
I know it's a very busy time of year for your department and senior staff and working with our auditor and stuff, but hearing their comments, and it's always nice to show the cooperation and the professionalism of your department. So thank you very much for all that work.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Carried. I think we're done. Oh. Okay, let's move on to the Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Worship. First on the agenda for myself is the cash in lieu of parking policy. The proposal is to approve the review of the MOS 2002 cash in lieu of parking policy. The Infrastructure Planning and Development Department conducted a scheduled review of the MOS 2002 cash in lieu of parking policy, which was approved September 25th of 2017. The review resulted in the following revisions: an updated language to make it clearer and more concise, and to remove the procedures section formerly in section 4. This was back in 2017 when procedures at times were in policies and they are not anymore. So the procedure will be redone amongst administration. Recommendation is being made the town council approve the revision to MOS 2002 cash in lieu of parking policy. The next attachment will be on page 3 of 3 is the reference that we're making. That's actually a change in the policy, which is the cash in lieu rate will be calculated according to Alberta's non-residential building construction price index, because you need something consistent to base a price on if someone's going to apply for a cash in lieu of parking. So this cleans it up for us and gives us a specific guide as to where we go to get that formula.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion for the recommendation. Barry makes the motion. A question, Director Lefebvre. Do we now put this money into a reserve, directed, well, hopefully someday that we would provide parking in the downtown area?
That's correct. Funds received from this parking in lieu of will then put into a reserve, and that can be used for the creation of a new parking lot, or even the maintenance of existing ones, like behind the post office, for example, if we need an overlay or lighting or something to be maintained or repaired.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
businesses without highway frontage for placement of signs promoting their business. With numerous calls and inquiries throughout the years from businesses adjacent to the highway, we are proposing to revise the policy and make it available to all town licensed resident businesses within the town of Vegreville. The options are: 1, review the designated highway signage area policy and approve policy revisions. Number 2, council to recommend alternate policy revisions. Or 3, simply deny the revisions. When we go to the policy on page 1 of 3, 1.0, the reason for the policy, it mirrors that available to all town licensed resident businesses within the town of Vegreville corporate limits to promote their business to highway traffic while ensuring consistent sign replacement to prevent sign clutter and control along Highway 16A. Then what we've done is we've taken the agreement, which you don't have, because that's what we've changed, and now the designated highway signage area will specifically be on the south side of highway between 62nd Street and 67th, so where it currently is now. And we are removing it from the north side, which is behind the previous Bueller Easy-On building.
And is there a recommendation with this?
The recommendation, or the options are, so, are to review the designated highway signage area policy and approve the policy revisions. Because this is a request for council decision, so you would vote on this. So the option 1 is what we're recommending.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to start a conversation. Okay, Councilor Rudick makes the motion. Do you prefer an option?
I don't know that,
Do you have enough information?
I don't know that I have an alternate suggestion, so I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
So we have a motion right now, so we can have a discussion. So does everybody understand why there is some changes taking place here with some requests of businesses that are along the highway that would like the opportunity to advertise there? And the other change is that with a new business paying taxes on a former site, so the whole north side we made available, but we also allow businesses that pay taxes along that boulevard to use that for $10 a year to advertise their product on. So that's why we're putting this forward, the request of other businesses that have businesses along the highway that were ineligible to put a sign on the south side. And now the other change is that we were removing the available space on the north side because there is a new occupant, a new owner of that land would like to have the same opportunity as everybody else along the boulevard to use that boulevard. So, go ahead, Councilor Bullock.
Well, I think it would be good to, for the business coming in there to be able to use it. It's not being utilized in the past few years already. So I think this is would be a welcome change to do that, to allow the existing businesses along there to be able to use that space.
And do you agree that the changes where we would allow businesses that already have highway frontage to have the opportunity, if there was space, to advertise on the south side?
Yes, I think that would be a wise idea.
Okay. Councilor Berry, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I can see the need for any businesses along that stretch there to have similar opportunities as to the stretch to the east of that, you know, for displaying instrument or implements or et cetera, whatever. The south side, I'm still trying to gather. It would open it up so that it wouldn't be restricted as much on that side, but it would still be only businesses in town.
In town, right now, the policy states that if they don't have access to highway frontage, then they're allowed to advertise there. And I just would like to stress too that as we move forward with this, There will probably be opportunity on the north side at probably the west end. We're just not sure until we get into negotiations on how much of the boulevard is gonna be needed.
Yes,
But for now, we need to change this policy.
yes, I could see that.
Councilor Rudick.
Sorry, I did have a question for you, Dale. With the construction on the skate park, will that impinge on any of the existing availability on the south side of the road?
It will not.
And as we move forward, if we change this policy now, we still have the opportunity to be able to address any future considerations that we may not have, that we may have other considerations that we need to take a look at on the north side of the road once the new occupant is there, and there are other occupants with potential greater need being able to use that boulevard that have never existed before. So what I would just be curious about is there a mechanism to rank order who gets first rights to those spots? You have a suggestion for that?
On the south side of the highway, when we're removing the designated highway signage area and opening up to a boulevard signage, then whoever has frontage has control of that area for their own, if that helps, because then if,
Sorry, I guess the reason I'm going to direct this back to you, Director LaFave, is because we've had the situation in the past where the frontage was the responsibility of the landowner, who could subsequently sublet it or let other people use it, which was kind of in violation of what we had intended. So do we have a way or a mechanism to be able to manage that?
yes, in the agreement, we'll have that there be no subletting. It's that individual, and that's all. And if they don't want to advertise and they don't want to take on the $10 a year fee, then the town takes ownership of it, of the frontage back, and then we control it again.
We have seen that in the past, and it was outside the policy, running signs that on the boulevard that weren't promoting their business, that were promoting something that had nothing to do with any business in town. And we took actions against that right away. Go ahead, Councilor Warwick.
I just have a two-part question, just to make sure I'm understanding it. So now, as proposed, if it went ahead, a business that was not necessarily along the highway could potentially have access, is that correct?
That's
They do
correct.
now.
Okay, and what do we define as a resident business? So would it have to be I'm just wondering if this then means that home business or anything with a license then would have that opportunity, or if it's literally one that is paying as a business, a separate property?
It would be a resident business. That means that the business home base is in Vegreville.
Even if it was a home-based business?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question.
So right now, the way the policy states is those who do not have highway frontage are the only one that are allowed there.
Yeah.
So what, we want to open it up because we've had requests and we've had vacancies in the past where businesses that do already have highway frontage would like the opportunity as well
To go.
there. So when there's a waiting list, it could be a problem, but we haven't seen much of a waiting list in the past there.
No.
So, and then when on the boulevard, the policy on the boulevard, this will address, might be a little bit of tweaking of some of the problems that we've seen in the past, where people try to use their agreement with the town on the boulevard for political purposes or other things, but we've addressed those in the past. So the policy will be that if you have a lease agreement with the town of Vegreville on the boulevard, it will be only and solely to promote that business that has the frontage on that boulevard.
And when you say promote, it has to be literally about the business, or could it still be business messaging? So I'm just thinking of something as simple as, like, say when there was provincials here, some of the businesses that were for some of the dealerships, it was their sign, they weren't promoting something else, but they were welcoming people to the community. Would that still be considered their messaging, or that would be something that have to be tweaked a little bit?
I don't think it has to be tweaked, because it's, at the end of it, it comes down to the opinion of the development authority. So if we feel it's tasteful and it's not right wing or something, then we let it ride. The problem the sports groups will have, like soccer, for example, is they're sitting in front of a business now because it's vacant, and we're fine with that. But I know that business is going to be ramping up soon, so we're going to have to find another home for it, like a community type one. So,
Again, I mean, it's not the mandate of that department to go seek to not support a nonprofit in an event. I mean, especially if the leasee at the time is okay with it, we're certainly not trying to go out of our way to hold back. There's an event coming up in 2 weeks, and I mean,
because what this policy has done absolutely is cleaned up the scattering of signs right across throughout town like it was years ago. At least now there's some control or a means of something to make correction, and we have this approved by council, and it gives you something to go clean it up with, make it right.
so Councillor Rudy, would your motion be for option 1?
So given the discussion that we've had, probably that would be the best recommendation. That summarizes the conversations that we've had here and allows us the flexibility as well as the support for local businesses. I'll make that recommendation.
So before we go to the vote, Director Lefebvre, when the policy is revised, you'll provide a copy of the revisions to council as it's written?
I can do that.
Okay. So right now, the community, the recommendation,
I'm sorry, Your Worship, you do have a copy of the policy as it is written. It's the next
Okay.
attachment. What you don't have is the agreement, because that's like a procedure, that's administrative, so I have the agreement. And it's the agreement that shows it's the north side of the highway and not the south.
okay. So,
Just one last question, sorry.
no problem.
This is totally just a weird timing thing popped into my head. So on the side that then would be technically their frontage on that boulevard, this is just like a random thing, not really to do with it being this timing, but sometimes when we're looking at like elections coming up, for example, you'll see election signage on what would be public properties. Would the boulevard, if it's controlled by that company, would it be considered theirs then, or would it still be considered part of public? I'm just thinking, because typically we've seen signs go up and down both sides. So I'm just wondering what the answer would be to that. Sorry.
I'm going to assume that the way it is written in our agreement is that they hold ownership of what gets posted on there if it's from somebody else. So I have to say there may be limitations if they oppose to it. The Highway Boulevard frontage, like even in front of where all the signage is, Veg Ford, all those areas, the town's boulevard that we have permission to make an agreement with them is only a part of that boulevard. Say halfway, let's call it. It's hardly halfway. And then the rest of the grass area is Alberta Transportation's road right away, where if it's back off the curb that distance, then you can put your signs down.
In the past, the last municipal election, I received written permission from the leasee on that boulevard to advertise my sign on there.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I just know even during past, say, provincial or federal, typically anything that's like public, right? So I think a lot of people would just assume, well, they're public lands and just go. I never dawned on me to just now that I was thinking like, is it or isn't it? So it might be something that we want to make sure that people would know prior to, like, this area isn't actually considered, because a lot of people just look at being a boulevard, they assume it'd be run by the municipality, right? But that's a good point. However, probably you were one of the few that did that due diligence.
Well, and we gotta remember too, not a lot of businesses wanna take on the opinion of every elected official or that's running in a campaign. Some people wanna stay out of it altogether. They have a lease agreement on that piece of property. I approached two businesses that had agreements, and they said more than welcome, and they put it in writing.
Yeah.
So, but not a lot of businesses feel that they should be openly supporting different candidates because it may affect their business.
I just think that some wouldn't even have known or attached it to the business, is what I was thinking. Like down there, okay, so I can honestly tell you, being involved in a federal one, we never even thought about it being attached to a business. We just looked at it as being along the side of the
Public
road.
lands,
Yeah, so that was my point. It's not really, that the business was doing anything wrong or the group, but that maybe, because honestly, I can tell you, we didn't even think about it. We just looked at it as being a strip. So that's a good point to realize. Okay.
Okay, so the motion is that we go with the option 1 in this new policy revision. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Director Lefebvre.
You're welcome.
who's up next? Cause I just, oh, here we go. Oh. That was it for you, correct? Yeah. So, Sandra Ling, Legislative Services Manager, what do you have for us, Sandra?
I'm actually going to take this one on Sandra's behalf, Your Worship. So, yeah, in front of you, we got a recommendation for a couple of minor updates to GOV 1009, the proclamation policy. While undertaking the scheduled review of the proclamation policy, it was noted that the policy refers specifically to a department title that no longer exists in our organization. The policy intent and direction has not been changed. However, the title of Communication Coordinator has been removed, and the Community Engagement and Economic Development Department, or SEED department, has been added into the definitions and where appropriate. The policy has also been reformatted into the newly adopted policy format. Communication strategy will be when adopted. The updated policy will be available on the website as well as in our shared common drive for staff. Recommendation is that Town Council approve the revisions to GOV 1009 proclamation policy.
Okay, we'll take a motion for the recommendation. Councilor Curtis makes the motion. Is there any more discussion? I know we discussed this at length in our ledge meeting. Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, are you doing this one
I
too?
am indeed, yeah.
Okay.
So the topic here is rescinding of policy 2015-02. The background: in 2014, Town Council approved the Multi-Unit Rental Housing Initiative Program policy to encourage the development of multi-unit rental dwelling units with a financial incentive. At the April 18th, 2023 Legislative Committee meeting, Town Council reviewed the current policy and acknowledged that the policy is out of date. In order to explore other incentive program options that may be better suited to the needs of Vegreville's current economic and housing climate, Policy 2015-02 will first need to be rescinded, and a new policy can be drafted to capture the current will of council. Recommendation is that Town Council rescind Policy 2015-02 Multi-Unit Rental Housing Incentive Program Policy.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion. Councilor Lemko makes the motion. Any discussion? Okay, so we are rescinding this, and as we get caught up and before next year's budget, we're gonna have a good conversation about what our options may be to help other developers in this. We know it's outdated and it's not funded, and this is the first step in building a new bylaw or policy regarding that. So all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next up, taxation rates and penalty bylaws. Guess that's going back to Director Saskia.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have here bylaw number 02-2023 of the Town of Vegreville in the province of Alberta to authorize the rates of taxation and tax penalties to be levied against assessable property within the Town of Vegreville for the 2023 taxation year. I'll just go through the total amounts that we have to levy, and then we'll go to the end of the policy or the bylaw noting the dates, and then we can go from there. So the Town of Vegreville has prepared and adopted estimates of the municipal revenues and expenditures as required at the council meeting held on November 28th, 2022. Whereas the estimated municipal revenues and transfers from all sources other than taxation is estimated at $9,106,424, and whereas the estimated municipal expenditures and transfers set out in the annual budget for the town for 2023 total $17,503,107, and the balance of $8,396,683 is to be raised by general municipal property taxation. And the estimated amount required to repay principal debt to be raised by general municipal taxation is $495,248, and whereas the estimated amount required for current year capital expenditures to be raised by general municipal taxation is $479,500. Therefore, the total amount to be raised by general municipal taxation is $9,371,398. So going through this document, we go through the different requisitions, residential assessment breakdowns. We went through all of this at the ledge meeting. And then at the very end, now therefore, under the authority of Municipal Government Act, the Council of the Town of Vegreville and the Province of Alberta enacts as follows: that the bylaw be cited as the 2023 Property Tax and Tax Penalty Bylaw. And then the CAO is hereby authorized to levy the following rates of taxation as listed. And overall, property taxes for the current year are due and payable no later than June 30th, 2023. So June 30th is a working day this year. And penalties are to be set 15% on all current taxes remaining unpaid after June 30th, 2023, and 15% on all taxes remaining unpaid after December 29th, 2023. The reason for December 29th is that is the last working day of the year, and not to muddy the waters with having to accept payments almost like all the way to January 3rd after the New Year's holidays and etc. This bylaw shall take effect on the date of the third and final reading, and bylaw 09-2022 is hereby repealed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a motion for the first reading. Councillor Barry, first hand up. Is there any comments or questions? I think we went through everything pretty much at our ledge meeting, but do you have a question? No?
Just want to clarify for the public, they can make it on a payment plan for themselves for the taxes?
Thank you. Yes, there is the tax installment payment plan. So if somebody were wishing to register for that for this year, they could register, let's say tomorrow. They would pay for January, February, March, and April. So for the 4 months that have occurred till now, and then go on the payment plan for the remainder of the year. So they're able to go onto the payment plan up until June 30th, 2023. If you go onto the payment plan after the deadline, you will still be assessed the 15% penalty in June. Thank you.
Good question. Nice comment. Okay, so all those in favor for the first reading? Carried. Take a motion for the second reading. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Looking for a motion for unanimous consent for third. Okay, Councillor Warlaw makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Now I'll be looking for a motion for the third and final reading on this bylaw.
Sure, I'll make, you want?
Councillor Rudick makes the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Whew, took a bit of a convincing there from her.
Not contentious.
Okay, we're done that. Council reports. Excellent. We are going to start with Councillor Warwa.
Sure. As soon as it opens, we will start with me. There we go. Okay, sorry, had trouble getting it to want to open. It's still being a little difficult. There we go. Probably had a lot of the same meetings as everybody else. On the 4th, I was at the Legislative Council meeting, and at the 5th, I attended some plaque presentations. The 14th, I was at the minister's announcement at Highway Registries, which, just one little comment I'll make to that, it is interesting anytime you make an announcement that's on a main road, watching people stop, we almost need to close that road because there was some pretty interesting driving that I noticed going by. People should keep their eyes on the road. I also attended the April 18th legislative meeting as well as a follow-up meeting with our local curling club. On April 20th, I had a VTSS meeting, and just a couple things to that. That group is still looking towards the funding of a new transportation unit, and they are really doing their due diligence before coming up with an exact unit that they're funding towards. They are taking the steps to see what changes, because of course all the changes that we hear sometimes government-wise will impact what your insurance and what should be going forward. So they have taken really good steps to reach out to their insurance company to find out in the future, as of right now, when you're providing a transportation as somewhat of a taxi service, what is your liability and where does it begin? Does it begin literally just when you turn the key on and drive away, so only for the purpose of the time we're driving, or would it include the loading of somebody in and out? Because that is a big difference as well. You know, it will impact the kind of unit that they might be looking at as far as ramps versus lifts, and taking into consideration if you are required by insurance to literally be the loader in, then they have to consider who they would have as volunteers for drivers, because they, you know, may or may not be physically capable of doing some of that loading. So they're, before jumping into a physically saying this is the step of a vehicle, they are doing all that due diligence. They've done several little fundraisers. They just recently did a bingo, which they did quite well at. And I do want to give this group kudos. They're a very small group, but they actually have some pretty, for lack of better words, diehard volunteers. They're great sellers when it comes to tickets and fundraising. They're willing to work really hard. They're always willing to put on those hot dog sales and do some of the really hard, you know, fundraising days, the bingos that take a lot of work. And so I give them a shout out. I know it's not easy to have volunteers, and with a really small group, they continue to push forward on these items. And if some group is looking for some assistance in selling tickets, they're pretty efficient in that. I managed to buy a ticket during a meeting, so I don't even know how that happened. But anyways, that's kind of where they're at right now, still moving forward in that direction. And they too are looking somewhat to see what, and I understand now is a kind of a bad pause time with elections and whatnot coming up, but they are looking forward to seeing, you know, maybe what some of the provincial direction is, to let them know whether their scope of what they're providing is changing a little bit. So other than that, I had today's Canadian Strategies meeting and also our tonight's council meeting. And thank you.
And you were attending a other meeting earlier before this meeting?
Oh, the strategies meeting, yeah.
Oh,
Yep. I didn't make it to the other one because I went to this one.
oh,
Yeah. Had a conflicting
I thought it
meeting.
was an FCSS strategy meeting you were.
No, it ended up being that they were scheduled at the same time, so I put them both in because I wasn't sure which one I was going to make it to.
Well, we appreciate you choosing this one.
Thank you.
Councilor Riddick.
Well, the end of March was very busy, so my report starts end of March when we were doing the federal budget came out, and so there was a lot of meetings, press releases, interviews, all about the RCMP retroactive pay, as well as the impression of FCM with regards to the lack of decision on infrastructure investment in the budget. So that was very much March 28th to 31st, in between attending AB Muni's President's Summit, not summer, on the future of municipal government, as well as the elected officials Municipal Leaders Caucus. And great to be able to see some of the advocacy of the various officials across the province being able to talk about the things that are happening in their community with passion, and really gratified to be able to see some of that in action. And then on March 31st, I made my announcement that I would be taking a leave from FCM as president in the afternoon at the end of the day. Next week, on the April 4th, we had our legislative committee meeting, and just to clarify for the public that are listening as well, conversation about me taking a leave from council was discussed at that meeting, and at the subsequent legislative committee meeting on April 18th, I delivered a letter to council that His Worship read into the record publicly, that I will be taking a leave to pursue a run for provincial elected office as soon as the writ is dropped. So just again to inform the public that that is the way things are proceeding at this point. But in the meantime, there have been other things. We've been able to, on April 5th, be able to acknowledge some of our local businesses again. It's great to be able to see some of the young people and new people to town opening businesses and demonstrating their belief in the vitality of Vegreville. So it's really great to be able to see some new businesses. On April 6th, the MD Minburn Foundation had a meeting with our housing consultant. Lots of really great discussions, a lot of decisions that need to be made, and really happy with some of the insight that is being provided with the consultant that we've hired. He has a lot of experience with being very successful with federal and provincial grants, as well as being able to deliver straightforward facts to us. So I'll let the chair riff on that information a little bit more. And I also got to have an interview with grade 6 students about inflation and the impact on municipal government that I think was probably one of the hardest interviews I've ever had. So I'm really impressed with grade 6 students. There was an amazing group of smart young women who had a lot of insight and a lot of hope for the future. So that was great. April 12th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Career Fair, and kudos to all of the businesses that attended, the post-secondary as well as the local high schools who brought their students to attend. I was really very impressed from hearing, maybe it was a month ago that we got together at the Chamber AGM where they had discussed having it, and to see the number of people that were there, as well as local businesses that had applications from people that they didn't even know lived here. A lot of good discussions about how relevant and how helpful that was. So I don't know if the town was successful in getting some future employees, but I know some businesses were. Yeah, so it was great. April 18th, National Volunteer Week. Lots of great volunteers, and want to specifically thank anybody that was preparing the meal, because somehow it seemed to be the volunteers who volunteer the most were the ones that were preparing the meal for the rest of the volunteers. But really want to recognize the amount of effort that our community makes to make the community better. There are strong volunteers, and again, it's always a little bit humbling to be served lunch by somebody who's over 80. And feel like you have a right to be eating that meal. So big thanks to those that organized that meal. April 21st, I missed a library board meeting on the April 18th. We had a lot of discussions there. They're looking forward to the new board member. And so I might have to give you a little bit of update, but lots of discussion there about some updates and policies. And we've got a few potential board members that are interested in joining, so that will be coming forward. And April 21st had a library policy workshop with some of the board members. Again, we've got a group of newer board members that are going to be coming forward, and great to be able to see people are interested in making that group strong and vital. And tonight's council meeting.
Thank you very much. So at the volunteer lunch, obviously you didn't get the memo, everybody eats at 11:30.
What?
You made it to the volunteer lunch at the Sunshine Club?
Yeah, I was there. I came there. I was there. I ate with other people. There were other people. I wasn't able to attend when you were there, Your Worship, because I had another meeting that interfered with that exact timing, but I was there.
Well, I just thought it was kind of strange that we ate at 11:30. I mean, it was nice to the volunteers, but it was like, okay.
I believe
went there to talk.
I
and it's
believe
like,
it was
everybody
a come
has
and
to
go.
eat right now. And I'm like, okay.
I believe it was between 11:30 and 2. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So you had the soup?
I had the soup and the egg salad sandwich. It was really very fantastic.
It was good. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you. I do like a good egg salad.
It was nice because I had to leave just a little after 12, and it's nice that somebody else was there. Councillor Lemko, you're up next.
Thanks, Your Worship. I too was at the Sunshine Club, and did notice that you left a little early.
They serve lunch at 11:30.
It was interesting to be there at that, finding that I was probably one of the youngest people there, having soup and sandwiches, and speaks volumes for the amount of volunteerism in our community when the majority of the people there are well into their senior years. And it was interesting to sit there and enjoy time with those seniors of which I'm slowly becoming to that. Scary. March 29th, 31st, I attended the Alberta Muni's Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus, and it was nice to be there to see some of the discussions around the upcoming election and some of the talk at the table. It was good to be there. The 31st, I sat in on a Zoom call with Minister Rajan Sani and Emily Homeniuk about some new Ukrainian relief funding. And that relief funding was for the $4.3 million in hotel accommodations for the communities of Red Deer, Lethbridge, Edmonton, Calgary, and Red Deer. The third, I sat in on the Zoom call with Alberta Immigration. It's the Agency for Immigration in Alberta. It's called ASA. And the file that I sit in on every 2 weeks is what the Vegreville stands with Ukraine, and they do the Ukrainian component in their meetings. A lot of the challenges that they talk about is the challenges that the many organizations that support the Ukrainians displaced that are coming into Canada and migrating into Alberta. The numbers are getting higher and higher each week. More and more Ukrainians are coming into Alberta. And there's organizations that support those Ukrainians and all the challenges they face, housing, support, and all that. The same amount of people are supporting, yet the numbers are increasing, growing, and they're running out of space in many of the cities and for rent and the costs associated with that. Hence the $4.3 million for the communities, Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. And one of the comments that was made once at the meeting was that the people that come and land in Calgary can have accommodation in Lethbridge, but there's no way of getting there. So that was a discussion point that was brought in the meeting. 2 weeks later, that's been ironed out, and some of the Ukrainians are getting there, but what's the support at that end? So there's many, many challenges that this group is facing with the amount of Ukrainians coming, and I get to sit in on and see if maybe we can solve some of the problems that they have in our community. Time will tell. The fourth ledge meeting. On the fifth, plaque presentations to Yummy Pizza and Accent Electric. Nice to see more businesses putting their feet down in Vegreville. The Minburn Foundation meeting on the 6th, the needs assessment. And to echo some of the comments made by Councillor Rudick, it was interesting to see how Mr. Weiss does his needs assessment and the amount of work he's done in that area. We have a challenge that we're facing as the foundation, and the fact that we know there's a need for housing for our seniors. The amount of baby boomers that are going to be within 15 years will be double and then some of the amount of seniors that are in our community today. So the struggle we have is how many units do we propose to build? Can we even meet the costs of building that? And should that be on the taxpayer in our community to look through that when there's private out there? So the board talks about the challenges we face, the role we face to try and manage that amount of infrastructure that we're going to need there. And we continue. This coming week, we have another meeting with our consultant where we'll really dive into what our next steps are, if it even means a proposal to build or to abandon project and take a different look at it and what that looks like. I attended the multi-industry career fair, and no, I wasn't looking for a job. I just thought I'd go there and have a good look at the businesses that were looking for employees, and there are a lot out there. So it's a good time to be looking for work because there is jobs out there. The 14th, Minister Dreeshen and Emily Homeniuk had an announcement regarding the Ukrainian driver's license announcement, which is a great announcement for the Ukrainians that are looking for replacement of their license with one in Alberta so they can commute to work. And it was this has been on the on-go for almost a year, trying to get this announcement so that they would be have a driver's license. 17th was another ASA Zoom call. The Tourism Advisory Board on the 17th as well. And I'll just highlight a couple things, and then I'll turn it over. I'll let the chair of that board, Councillor Curtis, to talk about some of the other things. We brainstormed some ideas for hosting sporting events in the community. What a great place in Vegreville to have the facilities we do. We talked about a slow pitch tournament or hockey provincials, and we did have the U13 Prospects Cup in our community, one of 4 camps in Alberta. I must add Calgary, Calgary and Edmonton, Vegreville, and Olds are the host places for these cups. So we're fortunate to have that, and I believe Hockey Alberta is happy to be here in our community. Vipers hosting a playoff championships, possibility of a pickleball tournament in conjunction with our other partner in Mundare, who's building a pickleball courts. And moving on, again, the volunteer appreciation. Some more plaque presentations, Lakeland employment on Main Street, so a place to go there. And if you're looking for work or looking for someone to work, it's a good place to put your sticker on the wall and see where it goes. Living Sounds Hearing Center by Vito's, a couple of businesses that have decided to come to Vegreville. The 18th Legend Meeting. The 19th, another announcement from Minister Dreeshen and MLA Homanyuk at the Force Main announcement. The 21st, I attended a meeting with His Worship at the Vegreville Suites with the new ownership group from who've taken over that building, and I'll let the mayor talk about those. Today's Canadian Strategy Group and this council meeting. And we should have a council meeting sooner than 1 month because my paper is running out. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Councillor Lemko, and I know that you're working hard on this Ukrainian settlement money that's coming in, and we're not being eligible, and a lot of the policies around it aren't making sense right now, and look forward to you straightening all this out. No, I'm not, all joking aside, I know that the work you're doing is going to pay off, and we're going to get this right, so. Okay, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, my piece of paper has actually got some lines on it this time as well. I wasn't able to be at the volunteer appreciation because I was busy in other committee meetings. Unfortunately, it sounds like it was a good time.
Well, lunch was early, that's all I can say.
Yeah, well, some of us appreciate that, you know. So on March 28th, had the Vegreville Regional Historical Society information meeting out at the Event Center. And despite it having been advertised quite thoroughly, and I appreciate town administration's support on that, had a very poor turnout. There's 4 of us there that were interested at all. It just doesn't seem to be gaining any speed. I'm letting it sort of marinate for a little while longer with a couple that do seem to have some interest. And I spoke with another individual who had left a telephone message for me at the town that may also be interested, but it seems that those that are interested are a little bit more of my age group, and whether we'll find a new generation that's interested in trying to promote the history that we're actually creating now into the future. It seems that about the only interest has been what has already been documented from the turn of the century. So I'll let that sit for a while. I'm a little disappointed, and I'm not certain that we're going to actually succeed in getting that society up and running, even though I think that it would be a good thing for the town. On the 29th and 30th, I was also at the President's Summit and the Spring Caucus in Edmonton, and I thought it was a really good session. I think that they do put on a very informative, I know a couple of the sessions were really informative. I actually really appreciated them. The 4th was a ledge meeting. The 5th, I went to Vermilion for the Vermilion Watershed Alliance. As you know, we have now dissolved the society itself. So we did a workshop after that in order to basically discuss the type of format the Alliance will continue to go forward on, more or less adopting what we had before we became a society, when we were just the Alliance and the committee back in 2013, 2014. So it'll be a steering committee of basically the same format as we have right now, of counselors and outside professionals that are advisors, along with a technical group. And we'll continue to work much the way we are right now. The nice thing about it right now is we do have a subcommittee for education, because we've determined that we feel that that is the one thing that we can do at a low cost and is very, very needed. And the Lakeland College, the students there, took on the project for us, and they've been working very diligently to create an activity book for basically, we'll say grade 1 through 6, but it could be junior high as well. It's almost in a rough design right now. It should be done maybe in another month or so, and I'll gladly be bringing a copy or two with me when it is put out. It's to try and, through, I won't say a comic book style or a coloring book style, but it is to try and get the kids involved in knowing what ecosystems are and what the watershed is about. And from my understanding is they've created a water drop character who's going to travel from the headwaters all the way down through the course and speak about things that it is going through its life existence as a water drop as it goes down through the ecosystem of the watershed. I think this could be extremely interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I think the students out there really took it on, and I think that they'll be involved with us even more in the future. I'll skip here quickly the 14th, the minister's announcement. I guess I can't skip too far here. From the April 17th through the 20th, I had the absolute pleasure of spending every morning on the Assessment Review Board member refresher course and writing the exam on Thursday. The interesting thing is, now that having been on there for 9 years, and my third refresher after the original, actually, because we have to do it every 3 years, I was recognizing the other 12 people that were on the meeting with me, 2 or 3 of them that have been on there for a while, and I could almost finish their sentences as we discussed the various different areas of it. And I'm pleased to say that although it was an open book exam, I did very well on it. So I will be getting my certificate probably in a week, and I'll forward that over to you, Sandra. So it's just in time for tax year, when I know I'll be swamped with 0 complaints, right? Anyway, that's, our assessor seems to take take care of things very well for us. And then on the 18th as well, the VRPHPARC meeting, where we were discussing the recruitment and of doctors, and we're still waiting to try and fill 2 more doctors' positions. One is getting ready to go through assessment soon, but the one doctor who we thought would be coming by the time July, August came around, had some glitches in trying to get his final exam through the internet done, from the internet collapsing on him on several times, and he wasn't able to complete it. And that would mean that he'd have to wait until January to try and take it again. So there is an opportunity possibly of him getting into a June one if he can get special permission. So our board, the chair, has submitted a letter and to try and a few other letters have gone in through MLA and et cetera, to try and promote his ability to write in June so that he could still maybe do his assessment this summer and be able to come, because waiting until January an assessment, we need the doctor now, and we're shorthanded, and to start all over, we'd be looking at 9 months just to try and start the whole process again. So it's really unfortunate. We have also been informed, though, that he is not the only doctor that fell into this dilemma. He was writing, he's in Calgary currently, but he was writing it while he was in South Africa. And we understand there's more than one other, or two or three other candidates that also were unable to complete that exam due to internet interruptions and failures. So there's letters going in to try and promote, to get them to all be able to rewrite so that they can try and get them back into the system. So we're really hoping that that'll take place. We had one student here who just left the end of last week, and 4 more are coming right now as nurses to be working in the community as students. They're all from MacEwan University. So they'll be out here and working, and hopefully they'll be impressed by the community. On the 18th, the 2 business presentations and the ledge meeting as well that day. On the 19th, the minister's announcement on the Forest Main grant, and then the 2 meetings today. So that'll be my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And hopefully the request with support letters for the doctor to rewrite in June will go forward. I hope so. Your committee was aware that our MLA did write that support letter? Okay, good. Okay, next up, Councillor Bullock.
Thank you. Attended many of the same things the rest of our councillors have. So the AB Munis was there, April 4th, legislative committee meeting, some business presentations on April 6th. The chamber manager and myself were participating in the Talk of the Town to promote the career fair. April 6th, also a chamber board meeting where there was a lot of talk about what was going on with the career fair at that time. Also, just a heads up, there's a golf mixer coming up that the chamber's putting on as well, so check out the chamber's Facebook page and website for that information. April 13th to 14th, attended the Economic Developers Association Experience 2023. Interesting to hear how Alberta globally is competing for investment and how well we are situated, and to know that we are known globally and see what was there, and also that Vegreville was mentioned on the last day there as well. Just so Vegreville's making a hit on the map everywhere. So as well, 18th legislative committee meeting on the 18th as well. Heather Curling Club meeting. Lots of detail on that one. The mayor will probably go into that a bit in his report. April 21st, the CAL's fundraiser planning meeting. So in the future here, CAL's is going to be doing some fundraising for a lot of their programs that go on in the community. And like I always say, just very lucky to have that organization in our committee for young families and everybody involved. And today's 2 meetings as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. Again, a lot of the same things. I'll just highlight a couple. Lots of plaque presentations, Alberta Municipalities Conference. Talk of the Town, that's something different I got to do, which was for National Volunteer Week. So I did miss Super Tuesday. I wasn't there at 11:30 or 11:45 or 12 or anything like that, but I was able to be on the radio, just, promoting Volunteer Week and, speaking to the importance of having volunteers for our nonprofits and other organizations around town. 17th, Tourism Board meeting, just a couple things there. Community Gardens is back, so those plots you can plant your garden in by Homestead Lodge. At the time of the meeting, there was 15 of the 20 in-ground plots were booked, so there was 5 left there, but only 1 of the above-ground plots. I'm not sure if they don't grow as well, people don't like them, I'm not sure, but there was a few above-ground plots left, so reach out. I think you can reach out to Michelle for that. Spring registration night, they had 22 organizations that showed up. We had about 150 people that attended. Some of the feedback there was they had some new brochures that people liked they could take away, especially some organizations that couldn't make it to the registration, but they were a part of the brochure. One thing they had talked about was that they think there is a decline in numbers and possibly combining with another event. They had mentioned the career fair or something else that was going on, if we could, 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing to up the numbers. Just thrown around there. And Vic, staff, and campground. So of the 6 positions, I think 5 were returning people, which is great. I think we had 86,000 visitors there last year. I think that number's correct. I just read it off a few times. So it's nice to have some staff that's been there and done that and is well attuned to what goes on to keep that place running. What else do I have? I just wanted to bring up one other thing. Was one of our plaque presentations was to Lakeland Employment Services, which is on 50th there, right by Prime Cuts. The amount of work that they do in there to promote, people in the community that may have some, trouble with, access to computers, printing off resumes, interviewing for jobs. They do workshops and everything there, and I think it's taken a load off of our FCSS department as well as Alberta Supports. I had a good chat with them in there, so if you're in need or anybody that's in need of trying to up your resume or maybe get better at doing interviews to help you become employed, by all means stop in. I think they have 5 locations and ours is the busiest currently, so the more they help, the less there'll be. So then we have our Canadian Strategy Group meeting and council meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. So I too attended the 2 different functions with AB Munis. First was the President's Summit and then the regular spring conference. It was nice to have lots of council representation there and then different breakout sessions and listening to other municipalities. And I mean, the first part, the theme was sort of collaboration and how we get there. And I don't know that there is a clear path yet, but I can see that no matter what we do, the province is going to push us in that direction. So it was nice to be able to participate in a lot of that and bring back some good information. And of course, listening to the Premier Smith and the leader of the opposition, Rachel Notley, both with their visions of what the future looks like. And again, just networking too with other elected officials is always a very positive experience. On the 4th, we had our Ledge meeting. We also did presentations at Accent Electric and Yummy Pizza, and it's nice to see new businesses and to see somebody local step up and buy their own facility and launching himself into what I do believe that they'll be very successful there. On the 5th, Alberta Hub in St. Paul, which was just a board meeting, not all members, and we're just trying to set a path where we're going to be and what the future of Hub looks like. We did have some funding announcements. I represented Hub with the announcements at RMA, and they doubled the amount of money that went into REITs, which was nice. And after Alberta meetings, I was in contact with the top officials in K Division and asked them if they could come out and have a conversation with myself and the senior staff regarding their billing practices and what we feel is, let's say, a very inadequate allocation of staff at the time. And then on the 11th, they showed up here for a meeting, and we had a meeting with the senior staff, and so we had Director Saskew and CAO Leggett, and Sandra took some notes, and we had Alan, our manager of emergency services, and we had so Staff Sergeant Colin was here, and so was Corporal Ray. We basically got nowhere. We thought that they were hearing what our problems were, and they were going to address them. I think it was 3 days later. We received a letter saying no, that all our concerns there is no concern. The billing for the officers that don't actually exist is standard practice, and we should just accept it. But of course, that's not what we're going to do, because we can't afford to just paying for people that actually don't work here. So we're going to leave it with senior admin right now for a little bit to see what the plan of action will be. I don't know, did we respond to the email, would you say, CEO Leggett?
Thanks, Your Worship. No, we haven't responded to the email per se, but I did get an update today from the Protective Services Manager. He's spoken to the Staff Sergeant over there, and they've got a game plan in place to do the reporting that we talked about in the ledge meeting. So that's going to be a standard practice now going forward.
So we will be building a case against what they're saying and how many officers actually should be on our payroll. We all know what's going on with the retro pay. With all the efforts of FCM and other provincial organizations, and the federal government didn't really feel there was a need to answer one way or the other. They just excluded the funding in the budget and let everybody figure out what the answer would be. So we are moving forward with what Alberta Munis, AB Munis is recommending, and what I'm hearing from other people across the country, other elected officials, they'll be taking the same type of action as we are. So that's an ongoing struggle there. On April the 11th to the 14th, I too attended the EDA, the Economic Development of Alberta Conference at Kananaskis, which was good. I haven't been at one for a couple of years, and it was kind of a funny setting in Kananaskis. I don't know if you guys ever been there, but it's like being held hostage. You really can't go anywhere. They don't even have a store. So anyway, there was lots of input, and Councillor Bullock was right. There was one part there that was at the end that was brought up with Vegreville in it, but there was other Invest Alberta used Vegreville as an example many times, and we were part of the conversation, and it was nice to network with some people, and it was, I believe, Jameson, your first time at one of these conferences, and now he knows what to expect. Bring everything you need. Don't expect to go to a store while you're there. But all in all, I think that we did very well there, and made a lot of good contacts, and just some local elected officials too, and then through conversations about what they're doing and stuff. So there's a lot of interest, and everybody's quite inquisitive to what's going on in Vegreville. There's a lot of good vibes out there, so it was nice. And on the 18th, I did go to the volunteer lunch at 11:30. That's what it said, and they were serving food. And then I was asked to speak, and I thought I was going to have some help at this event. I'm sorry that you all didn't read the email and came late. The soup must have been cold by then.
Smoking hot.
It's always nice to be able to recognize people that volunteer, and my message was, there's no greater gift to give back to your community. And the age of the volunteers there and the people that are still volunteering in the kitchen and stuff, it's just so good on them that it's just built into their DNA that they want to make a community a better place. you know, just really proud of them all over there, and hopefully that we can get a new generation involved in this. So then we had our LEDS meeting on the 18th. Also on the 18th, a subcommittee of Councillor Bullock and Councillor Wawa, myself, CAO Laggett, and Alan from Emergency Services. Oh, it wasn't Alan. Oh, it was Dan from Parks and Rec, sorry. And we just sort of gave them an update where we're at with the ice plant and what the future looks like. And we're looking for some comments from them about how many participants they have in curling and what do they see the future looks like. And so the conversation had to start someplace, and I'm sure that we did get the information they wanted back to them. Right, Director Saskia, we sent that out. So I look forward to the next discussion, and they're not easy discussions. I mean, there's a lot of money to keep that ice plant going, and what the needs are, even to bring it up to code, and it is what it is. We'll try to work them the best we can, and in the meantime, we need to make some decisions moving forward what our facilities look like. So hopefully by the fall, we'll collect enough information that we can have a bit of a task force on moving forward on what that looks like. On the 19th, I too was at the announcement for the grant funding, and it was awesome, you know, that we put in for last year. We didn't receive it, but this year we did, and 42% of the cost that we're taking on out there, and this is a major project. This project's going to benefit this community for the next 70 years, and it just means that the steady growth that we're looking for in the community will be supported by that very crucial piece of infrastructure, and good on the minister and our MLA and the government of Alberta recognizing that. So then on the 20th, I had sat in a meeting with the Northern Mayors of Saskatchewan regarding the Via Rail situation, and we seem to be getting nowhere with the federal government and the Minister of Transportation and Via Rail itself. So we're going to up our game a little bit and bring a lot more people to the table. So stand by or hold on. We're going to shake things up a bit there. On the 21st, I and Councillor Lemko, and good on Councillor Lemko to invite me to the meeting with the owners of Vegreville Inn and Suites. And it was a great meeting, and they really love the community, and they have interest in BC and in Ontario, and they really like our community, and they want to work together with council, with the other business, and try to promote more events for Vegreville and stuff. And when Councillor Lemko, talked about some of the ideas, especially in sport tourism, and maybe taking on some bigger roles when it comes to provincial games or Canada games and stuff. He was quite interested. They have purchased the Hotello, and they've had a crew in there for a while. They're done, but they're using it all the time now, and they've put a lot of money into, I would say, upgrades, just to bring it back to the level they could get open. And they feel very confident. They call it Tower 2. So it's Vegreville Inn and Suites Tower 1 and Tower 2. I do believe it's 161 suites he said they have available. So that'll go a long way when we're advertising now for tournaments and stuff like that. So, and again, just a great young man, and look forward to seeing them be successful over there. So today I attended a presentation by Minister Dreeshen in the Fort. They were announcing the money for an engineering study on 830 and Highway 15 right at Scotford. And some of those employees can set it an hour trying to get out of there when the trains are backed up. And so it's Highway 15 is a big concern in that area. It's twinned up to there. And while I was there, I also was another announcement benefits Vegreville. So they're in the 2023 budget. They are spending some money on the 857 South and the Highway 16. I don't have their exact number, but the chief of staff said that he'll get back to me in the next couple of days about what's all entailed in the work, and it could be an engineering report on the overpass and stuff moving forward with that. Not quite sure, but it was nice to hear us say that there's gonna be some more money spent outside making access to Vegreville even better. And then today's presentation and tonight's council meeting. So that's what I have. At this time, is there any other business of council? Well, seeing none, I want to thank you all again for what you do every day in our community. And Councillor Rudick, will you be attending another meeting before the writ is dropped?
That's it. This will be it. I'm guessing that the writ will be dropped May 1st unless something happens between now and then. There won't be another council meeting. I've got a couple other council responsibilities this week, but this will be my last meeting in this format until after May 29th. So we'll see.
Well, on behalf of all the council, staff, and the citizens of Vegreville, we all wish you luck, and we know that you're gonna go out there and work hard. So we'll sit back and we'll wait to see what happens.
I'm working hard to make it easy for people to make the right decision, so happy to
Well,
do that.
nice. Again, thank you very much and good luck. So if there's no other business of council, I adjourn this meeting at 8:55. Everybody stay tight.